Hello, welcome. Today's sketch is going to be of this beautiful building. It's a gallery called Wally Findlay Galleries. It's located in Palm Beach, Florida. It's one of the oldest galleries in Florida right now. And I'm going to be working off of this black and white sketch that I printed out. So I'll have that to the side so you can see the reference as I sketch. I'm doing a 9 by 12 watercolor paper, and I'm just going to do the center. I'm not going to fill the whole page. It's going to just fade off on the edges, and I'm using a dip pen for the first time with some Noodler's ink, waterproof ink. And I'm going to be dipping and sketching as we go. So I've set that ink up there so there wasn't a shadow on the paper. But I think it's best to have my ink to the right so that my hand doesn't keep crossing across the artwork. So I'm going to start in the center. I put a few marks down. I'm going to start in the center. I started with the sign, so at least I have a guideline of everything, and then I kind of work my way to the right and then left. So I'm going to get this awning in. I love buildings with awnings, striped awnings. I'm just drawn to them. I think they're so visually beautiful, and I thought this would make a really great subject. And I'm really digging this dip pen. You can actually, for how small it is, I'm just surprised how far you can go without having to dip again. But I keep dipping because I've never used it before, so I'm not sure. I just am thinking I gotta dip every time. But it's a really beautiful fine line. I did speed this up just a hair. And so here I dipped it once, and I'm going to see how far I can go with these lines, and still going. So it really holds a lot of ink. I'll leave in the description below the video, I'll leave a list of the supplies, and I just got this pen from Amazon. Artists are like kids in a candy store when it comes to buying art supplies. I always think, oh, this is going to make me the best artist ever, and it's going to make my life so easy, but it isn't that way. It's practice, practice, practice with any tool that you purchase. But I don't know why I have it in my mind like, this is it. I zeroed in a little bit, zoomed in a little bit on this, and the image was a little bit bigger, but I zoomed in because I really wanted to focus on that awning. And I love the American flag above the door. Great touch. So I looked up a little bit of the history which was kind of cool, that in 1870, William Wadsworth Findlay opened his gallery in Kansas City, Missouri. And let's see, they opened up this particular gallery in 1961. And they opened up one in New York City, and then Beverly Hills on Rodeo Drive. So a very well-established quality gallery. So I want to get that awning to the side in there, but I want to get some other details around there so I can judge the scale of it. So I figure I better put these pillars in front, because then I can kind of judge off of those. And again, like I said, when you're working on something, sometimes putting the things in front are best, because then you're not having lines going through, you're not having the detail of the back lines going through the front objects, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put that door in, and that way I could judge from there how far that awning should come over. So like I said, I sped this up a little bit. It was over an hour. I think it was an hour and 9 minutes. So I just did one little speed up. So you can imagine how slow I was going, because I was just being very aware. And right there I made a mistake. I went too far over on that line. I should have stopped right there. But we're going to cover that up later, or at least disguise it a little bit. So I put that front door, and then I could judge that awning about how far over it should go. And then I think one of my favorite things in this are these oh my gosh, topiary plants. They're a great focal point. Between that awning and these, I think it's a great subject. I don't know if you've ever been lucky enough to go to Palm Beach, but oh my goodness, it's something. It's just, you drive along the beach. When Ian hit our state, or my area of the state, we went over to that coast. We evacuated and we went over there. We boarded up the house with the shutters, and we put the dogs in the car and some supplies, and we left and went and stayed in Boca Raton. And we stayed a few days. And while we were there, we drove down Palm Beach and got to see the beautiful sights and the amazing mansions, and to see the East Coast. We live on the West Coast, so on the Gulf, and it's very calm, but the East Coast, the waters, they've got a lot more waves, so it's very, very different, but just beautiful. Such a beautiful area. If you ever get a chance, it's a great place to visit. Lots of great restaurants. and sites. I purchased a little container this morning to put the ink in that's a little squattier with a screw top. Because this ink container is tall, and I'm so nervous I'm going to knock it over. So doing the windows and putting the artwork in the windows. It's kind of fun. You're doing art and then putting art within the art. Topiary? Is that how you pronounce it? Topiary? The other topiary, I believe. And just when I'm pulling that pen across, I'm just lining up the bottom to see where I need to finish that pillar. And I've decided to leave, you know me and my palm trees, I love them, but I've decided to leave those two palm trees out. Because one would have been just the trunk. And the other one I just decided to leave it out to see how it goes. There's a big bush, boxwood bush right here to the side. Sorry about that. Never fails. I always get an email when I'm recording. There's a little wrought iron fence on the balcony there. and it's got a little decor, so I'm just going to make up my own little one oval line and two circles on the top and bottom of it, so it looks like some ironwork decoration. I'm going to put it here too. You really can't see it so much with the ferns, but so I'm going to put the two little palm trees above the right side of the building. I'll put those in. That way you know it's a tropical location. We're close to the beach. And you think when you move somewhere where you're close to the beach that you would go to the beach all the time, but I think we probably go at the most 5 times a year. It's I would go more, but my husband doesn't really care to sit there. He gets bored, and also the sand is really messy. He has to vacuum out the car for like an hour after we get home. So I penciled in the sign lettering to make sure I had that evenly spaced and didn't run out of room. So I will just go over it with my Faber-Castell 0.1, and I think then I'm going to go over it again with the 0.5 just to make it bolder. And then once that dries, I'll erase the pencil mark. But I've got my artist marker. This is a waterproof marker in black. I was deciding whether to, I don't have black watercolor paint, and I can't really get a dark paint with the colors I have, so I decided to use the black marker to do the awning. Ends up being a little more in the lines for this particular thing. I kind of wanted to keep it really somewhat neat for the awning itself. So we're using a dip pen with ink, a marker, and we'll finish up with some, well, we won't finish up, we'll do some watercolor, and then we'll finish up with the Faber-Castell pens again. And now I'm going to do a little shadowing. Actually, I'm going to put the do the windows with this marker. I didn't want to make them black because I didn't want them to compete with the black in the awnings. And so I just thought to do them in a grayish. I forgot this awning. Did the side with the bold marker and then got the little fine tip out to do the top of that awning. I'm just going to do a little double lining of those the window panes. And you really got to be careful because the ink was a little thick there, and I rubbed my hand right through it and smeared a little bit of that ink before it dried. So I've got the color reference up, mixing up a little green for the tree or the bushes. And I tested it and I like that color. So I'm gonna wet the paper for where the leaves are and the ferns and the palm tree. I'm gonna wet the paper first and then just drop the paint on top so it spreads out into the water. Mixing a little bit darker green. It's kind of a blue green, a teal. Putting a little teal in there for some depth. I'm mixing a little gold to outline the frames in the window display. And now I'm going to do the flag. Get the pen out and put those stripes in there, and I'll just follow the stripes. So I'm just dropping that blue in so it leaves some white marks, so it looks like the white marks are the stars. And then put in some red stripes. That turned out a little pinkish, so I want to get a good red. Got a nice little fine tip brush here for the little detail like that. So I let it dry a little bit, and that, as you can see, watercolor always dries a little bit lighter, so I went in and mixed a little bit deeper green, and I'm just going to drop that in on top. Forgot one of the windows. So I'm going to mix a little bit of the color that was in the tray there, some white, little pink and yellow, to get that color of the lighter part of the building. The part that's in the sun. I go a little bit darker, adding a little brown to that, a little orange for the darker shaded areas of the building. To do a little test sometimes on a little piece of paper. And do some shadows. The little ultramarine, add just a hair of pink. I did that building color with a little bit of white in it to do the sidewalk there. And then to that blue I add a little more brown for the planters. And I thought it was too dark, so if you ever feel like something's too dark and it's still wet, just clean out your brush and get most of the water out and then just pull that paint back off. And if it's dry, you can wet the brush a little bit and try and scrub it, but not too much because you'll sacrifice the paper. And it could tear easily by manipulating it too much with too much water. So we are going to do some art within the art. Thought I'd do a little abstract today. Not bad. And there's a little decorative emblem on the door and some writing. So I'm just doing squiggle lines to give it the impression of letters. So I like to let it dry a little bit and before I start adding pen, so I let that sit for a few minutes and then I came back and I'm using the 0.1 and the 0.5 for some of the thicker lines. Oh, and the marker. Decided to put those underneath awning stripes in. Looks better. And some kind of some streaks on the window. Give it the illusion of some shadowing. I like this part because once you put the watercolor down, it kind of dissipates some of your original ink lines. So by going back over, it brings those marks out. And some palm tree rings. Makes a big difference doing this finishing detail. Outlining those ferns again. They got lost in the paint and some of those iron details. Oh, we're getting close. Make that sign pop. Oh, my hat's in the way. See how that just adds that finishing touch. Put a couple little squiggles in these bushes. Outline our abstracts. And do a little railing, banister on the top, and that is it, folks. It's a wrap. So here is the finished painting, but I just felt like something was off. Sometimes when you're done, you look at it a little bit, and I decided to put a little shadow in the awnings. So here is the image after I just went back, added a little shadow, because it just looked kind of, it was popping too much. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful day, have a creative day, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.